Imagine facing a steel monster weighing 1,000 tons on the battlefield. No, I'm not talking about a creature from a sci-fi movie, but about real war tanks that, at one point in history, almost went from blueprints to active combat. Massive tanks, so heavy that they made bridges collapse, forcing them to cross rivers by diving to the bottom using snorkels to breathe. Today, let's dive into these absurd creations of military engineering that defied common sense and perhaps even the very logic of war. Tanks. There's no greater symbol of modern warfare than the tank. In this video, we'll look at some of the most ridiculously large tanks ever designed. To start with something familiar, let's talk about the M1 Abrams, an American-made main battle tank still in use today. This beast weighs an impressive 62 tons. That's the equivalent of 49 Toyota Corollas from 2016. Its main cannon is 105 millimeters in diameter, meaning the projectiles it fires are 105 millimeters wide. The tank also has 3 secondary machine guns positioned around it, operated by a crew of 4. Each M1 Abrams costs an astonishing $9 million to produce, but that's just scratching the surface when it comes to the gigantic tanks of history. One of the largest tanks ever built in terms of sheer physical size dates back to World War I and was manufactured by the French. Known as the Char II-C, it even appears in the expansion pack for the game Battlefield 1. Early tanks, like the British Mark I, were conceived as a way to break through enemy trenches. Heavy, slow, and poorly equipped, they struggled with mechanical and movement issues. The introduction of the French Char II-C was an attempt to create a more powerful, efficient tank, but its development was hampered by the complexity of its design. The Char II-C was designed in 1917 while World War I was still underway, but the first unit wasn't completed until 1921, 3 years after the war ended. This tank weighed 69 tons, slightly more than the modern M1 Abrams, and had a main cannon of 75 millimeters, along with 4 secondary machine guns positioned at the front, sides, and rear of the vehicle. This massive tank measured 10.27 meters in length and 3 meters in width, needing a 12-person crew to operate it. However, France only built 10 of them, which wasn't nearly enough to make a difference when the Germans attacked again during World War II. But there was an even more absurd tank, designed by the Germans during World War I, the K-Wagen. The K-Wagen was so enormous, it couldn't be transported in one piece. The Germans had to disassemble it into 6 separate parts, transport them by rail, and then reassemble it near the front lines. One of these tanks was completed shortly before the end of the war, but was never deployed, as Germany surrendered first. If it had been used, the Western Front would have witnessed a 120-ton monster, almost twice the weight of a modern M1 Abrams. The K-Wagen was 13 meters long, just 2 meters shy of the width of an NBA basketball court. It was armed with 4 Fortress-grade 77mm cannons and 7 MG-08 machine guns. The tank was designed to be operated by a 27-person crew, a commander, 2 drivers, a signal operator, an artillery officer, 12 gunners, 8 machine gunners, and 2 mechanics. They even considered equipping it with flamethrowers, but that idea never materialized. By the start of World War II, tank designs became even more bizarre. The Nazis created one of the most extreme tanks in history, the Panzer VIII Maus. To this day, it's the heaviest tank ever built, weighing a staggering 188 tons. That's almost 3.5 times the weight of a modern M1 Abrams. The Maus was equipped with a 128mm main gun, capable of destroying any Allied tank from a distance of 3.5 kilometers. It also had a secondary 75mm cannon and a single machine gun. Its front armor was 220 millimeters thick, and it was operated by a crew of 6. However, due to its size, it faced numerous challenges. For instance, it was so heavy it couldn't cross bridges without collapsing them. If it needed to cross a river, it had to submerge and use a snorkel system to pump air into the cabin. A totally impractical solution. The mobility factor. German tanks, like the Panzer III and IV, gained notoriety during World War II for their effective combination of firepower, speed, and mobility. Key elements for the success of the blitzkrieg tactics. This approach contrasted with the philosophy of supersized tanks, like the Maus and Ratte, which sacrificed mobility for raw power. Now, if there were ever a final boss battle worthy of a video game in real life, it would have been against the Landkreuzer P.1000 Ratte, a German supertank project. Personally approved by Adolf Hitler, this tank was planned to weigh an unbelievable 1,000 tons. That's over 5 times the weight of the Panzer VIII Maus and 16 times the weight of a modern M1 Abrams. Of those 1,000 tons, 300 would have been just for ammunition, for shells for its cannons and rounds for its machine guns. The Landkreuzer was designed to be 39 meters long, longer than an NBA basketball court, and 14 meters wide, roughly the same as the width of one. It would have been powered by 2 massive 24-cylinder diesel engines, the same kind used in German U-boat submarines, generating an astounding 16,000 horsepower and allowing the tank to reach speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour. Its main weapon would have been a dual-mounted 280mm SKC/28 gun turret, the very same type used on Germany's battleships. To put that into perspective, the Ratte's main gun barrel would have been nearly 4 times the size of the M1 Abrams main cannon. Alongside this colossal gun, it would have also been equipped with a 128mm anti-tank cannon, 2 15mm MG 151 autocannons for smaller targets, and 8 20mm Flak 38 anti-aircraft guns. The tank even had compartments to store 2 motorcycles for reconnaissance, along with a medical room and a restroom. It was designed to be operated by a 41-person crew, but a tank of this size was doomed from the start. Despite its anti-aircraft defenses, it would have been an easy target for enemy planes, making it highly vulnerable from above. Tanks like the Panzer VIII Maus and the Landkreuzer didn't just face issues due to their massive weight. They also guzzled fuel at an alarming rate. The Maus, for instance, consumed enormous amounts of fuel, and moving such a colossal machine required complex and extensive supply routes, making it practically useless in a war where logistics played a vital role. This obsession with absurdly large tanks probably contributed to Germany's downfall in the war. Even with less advanced tanks in the early years of World War II, Germany managed to capture vast territories thanks to sheer numbers and fast, coordinated strikes, not because they had the biggest or best tanks. Massive tanks like the Maus and the Ratte were designed not only for physical warfare, but also for psychological warfare. Just the idea of a 1,000-ton tank, or even the Maus with its nearly 200 tons, instilled fear and contributed to the myth surrounding Nazi Germany's technological prowess. Even though these tanks were impractical, their mere existence created a psychological effect on enemy soldiers. By the time the Germans developed advanced tanks like the Maus and Ratte, they were up against an almost endless supply of Soviet T-34 tanks, quick, simple, and mass-produced. The Blitzkrieg finally met its match in the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, which exhausted Germany's war effort. From then on, they struggled to regain momentum. The Battle of Kursk, fought from July to August 1943, was indeed the largest tank battle ever, involving over 6,000 tanks from both sides. The battle ended in a decisive Soviet victory, solidifying the T-34's superiority and highlighting the failure of the German strategy that relied on heavy, complex tanks.